Hey everybody, welcome to FF Uncensored.
I was waiting for that.
I know, it really is just too much when you do that though.
Love
Okay,
it.
you got jokes. Okay, so this week we are talking about the Screw It
The
mindset.
Screw IT Mindset.
Oh, and you're eating well-made meal prep. Look at you.
We're a little well-made going on today. We got meatballs, rice, corn, and well-made meal prep is part of our next challenge. So if you haven't signed up yet, now is a good opportunity or a good sign to sign up. You can get a little discount on well-made meal prep throughout to help make it a little bit easier to stick to your goals. So that's fun.
Okay.
But
Well, not for us in down here for the challenge because we don't have well-made meal prep.
so today we're talking about what we call the Screw IT Mindset. So some could also call this like on the wagon, off the wagon. But it's, I think, something a lot of us go through where we're maybe in like a mental state, or maybe we haven't been sleeping well and we just like screw it and we don't really care. So how do we handle it when things like that happen? So Ashley, I'm going to let you kind of take that away. If you have a client that's kind of in the like, I just don't care anymore.
You know what? I actually had a client tell me about not wanting to train because she wasn't in an all in place, and she either needs to be all in or all out. And that, like, we talk about this all the time about how like it's okay to just do it. Like, you don't have to want to go to the gym to go to the gym. Like, what if instead of thinking you needed to hit the gym 5 days a week and you needed 10,000 steps a day and you needed all of this stuff, what if you just showed up at the gym twice a week for the next 30 days? Like, does that seem doable at where you're at right now? So often we're willing to throw everything away when maybe we don't need to throw everything in the trash. We just need to throw a couple things down the toilet with, and that might not be, and I'm not saying like your workouts go from 5 to 0. We're talking about like maybe 2 of them stay and 3 of them are just on hold or on the back burner until you feel like things open up more for you. But like, instead of saying screw it all, like I'm going to go eat crap and I'm going to not hit the gym and I'm not going to do this. What if we did less, but we still made good choices?
Right. I mean, the Screw IT mindset, right? I think a few ways that you can get around it is one, thinking about a little bit about like your future self, right? And like, who do I want to be, right? What do I want to accomplish? So whether it's relating it back to goals, and I think trying to tie your training in and the reason you eat well into bigger things. Maybe it's aging well. Maybe it's wanting to perform well at a hobby that's more activity orientated. Maybe it's like being there for your grandkids. Maybe you saw the health of parents or grandparents deteriorate really quickly because of poor lifestyle choices, right? And so I think if you can find a little bit of that like why behind it, it's a little easier to convince yourself to show up, because working out is kind of this like weird, I don't necessarily get direct benefit from it today. Like, yeah, you get a little bit of like the sense of accomplishment and some endorphins and other things that you get directly from working out. But really, like working out and eating well is like putting deposits inside of a bank account for your future self. And so
I,
it,
I mean, it's your healthy retirement investment.
right. And so like that we have this analogy, and this was in our notes for this call, was this idea of like a bank account. Right. And there's really actually two ways to go about this. There's kind of two pieces of this analogy. So the first analogy is you can think about a bank account as deposits and withdrawals, right? And every time you show up, you do something for yourself, right? Those are considered deposits, right? We're putting deposits in that bank account for essentially our future self, right? And then we're also going to have withdrawals where there's going to be times where it might be a day that I say screw it, or a meal that I say screw it, or I'm going out with this or going out with that, and something that's not the norm necessarily for me. So like an example might be I'm going to the state fair, right? And I just gonna eat whatever I want. Cool. Like that would be a withdrawal, right? Because I wouldn't want to do that all the time. Because if I continue that lifestyle, like that just wouldn't be congruent with what I want to do, right? And so the whole goal of keeping a healthy bank account is to have more money in there than, or to make more deposits than you do withdrawals. So we always want money in the account. And so that's where it comes down to, is we just keep making deposits. Are the behaviors, are the decisions that I'm making, is it a deposit or withdrawal? And then at the end of the day, and the end of the week, end of the month, have I made more deposits than I have withdrawals? Right. And if I want to essentially be wealthy one day, I need to make way more deposits than I withdraw out of it. Right. Rather than living like paycheck to paycheck and my health is just kind of like moving along. Right. That's like I'm withdrawing as much as I'm depositing. And so
This might be one of the best analogies you've had in a long time.
not original whatsoever, but I think it helps people conceptualize this idea of health a little bit more, on just asking yourself, like, hey, am I making a deposit with this thing that I'm doing or withdrawal? Neither is good or bad, right? We should make withdrawals. It's the last thing you want to do is retire with loads and loads of money and then die. And like, you just now like worked hard for all of this. And then you just, let your kids spend it on stupid stuff. Like, right? Like have some fun with your money as well.
I have a
And so
question. Do you have some fears about that?
about wow,
your kids spending it on stupid stuff?
my kids are not getting much of anything. So um, there's certain things that they will get, but they're not going to be like just giving up the money so that they can just do whatever they want with it. Right?
But here's the
There's
thing.
no value in that.
Okay, so here's the thing. It's really is just like putting away for retirement though now too. We keep saying we're going to do stuff when we retire. And what happens when you retire is you might financially have the means to do it, but do you have the physical capabilities to do all the things that you want to do? And investing in your health bank account is like investing in your retirement as well. We all put money, okay, I'm hoping we all put money away for retirement. So when we get to the ripe old age of insert your retirement age, that you're going to be able to do these things that you've waited your lifetime to do. And those investments in your health bank account are going to be components to you getting to do all of those things that you wanted to do and you saved to do in retirement. And I think that's a miss for a lot of people, is that they invested in their, and they worked more and they did all of these things so they could retire, but then they didn't save and hit that point where they have the health to be able to do everything they wanted to do in retirement.
So this also leads us into another analogy around bank accounts, around the screw it mindset. So if you have, let's say you have money in the bank, right? And you maybe make a purchase that wasn't maybe the best purchase, right? Afterwards, you're like, nah, that wasn't a good idea. We've all kind of made those purchases. But what if after that purchase that you realized wasn't a great purchase, you decided to just empty the bank account because you're like, screw it. I bought this thing that was dumb. I'm just going to go buy lots of other dumb things too and show myself that that was like, like it's, when we think about it in those terms, it's like, no, like I would never do that. Like I would just not buy the next thing and I would just keep moving forward. But when it comes to like, if we're maybe not congruent with the program or whatever we might be working on, and we have maybe a bad quote unquote meal, and then we decide like the rest of the day is screwed, or maybe the rest of the week is screwed, or okay, I'll start on Monday. Like that seems normal. But if we just, all we do is change the terms into like money in a bank account, it becomes abnormal. And so I think starting to question a little bit about how we think about things and maybe reframing them helps us to be like, oh yeah, like, all right, cool. I did just like maybe have a meal that wasn't ideal for what I'm trying to accomplish. Cool. Next one, let's make it better. Right? Not like, oh, screw it today. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. I'm just gonna let whatever I want do today. I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes it just takes a reframe in order for it to like make sense for people.
God, your bank account analogies are really top
Yeah,
notch
kind of
right
good,
now.
right? Mm-hmm.
I'm just so used to car analogies from you.
We like to
So I'm
support all
really liking
industries,
it.
but right. And so, like, at the end of the day, I think it's starting to examine our own maybe beliefs and like how are we reacting to things? Are we just reacting, or are we taking the time to like make decisions? And so I would call it the screw it mindset being like a reactive mindset. right? Something a 7-year-old would do. But as an adult, like you've been given more years. And so use the wisdom that you've accrued from those years to make better decisions, right? And
Yep.
rather than if you take one step back, take 10 steps back, why not just take one step back and then keep moving forward? But it's hard because we're humans and we're driven by lots of different emotions and feelings and unseen forces. So I think it's just more self awareness. If you have more self awareness, you can make better decisions. And if you have that screw up mindset, like examine it. Why am I feeling this way? For me personally, if I have more of a screw up mindset, it's usually I'm either sick or I'm getting sick. Like I'm starting to not feel well, but it's even like before that. So that for me is sometimes an indicator. Like if my mind isn't right on something, it's like, okay, hey, let's make sure we take a little extra care. Let's maybe get a nap in. Let's get some more sleep because there's something that's maybe not right because that isn't my norm, if that makes
You know
sense.
what's funny? Your go-to for when you have screw mindset, I think you've said it like 4 times, is sleep or a nap, and you said it at the
Mhm.
beginning too. So maybe we should maybe we should have a whole talk about sleep and its importance and all of this other stuff, because Trevor and I feel like both of us do the same thing. When you start talking about the screw mindset, it doesn't usually have to do with more work or anything like that. It always goes back to how well rested you are to be able to make the choices instead of do that stuff. And I think that's a really important thing for people to notice and point out, is that we always go back to sleep.
Well, it's one of those foundational things. Like sleep deprive someone and then have them make good decisions. Like they aren't like it just doesn't happen, right? We know that literally it's used in torture techniques. Like sleep deprivation is like a form of torture. Like, but yet we do it to ourselves over long periods of time.
But
Crazy, right?
but it's the same thing as uh people saying that they want to lose weight, but they don't want to do what it takes to lose weight. Or every time I eat this food, it makes me sick. And then you go, well, why are you still eating that? And they're like, they just stare at you. And I'm like, okay. Like, we choose to do these things to ourselves over and over again. So it really becomes the examination of, why do you continue to do these things to yourself without making the changes? And what does it take to make some of those changes? So, like, in the long run, you don't feel like that, or you feel better, or you have more energy, or you don't feel like you don't care about things or anything like that are you want to be important to you.
Well, the cool thing about that is you also have the choice to do something different. And I think it's important to examine behaviors because our behaviors serve a purpose. Like there's a reason why we're doing something. And so if you can examine why you're doing that thing, then you can potentially get what you're trying to get out of that thing, the result from something that's maybe more positive, right? And so that's where again I think self-examination, self-awareness, that kind of stuff becomes really helpful when we're looking at behaviors and why we're doing certain things and what is it that leads us to doing those things. Maybe it's this pattern that we've created over time that like we just find ourselves in the pantry eating food at 8 o'clock at night because I don't know, we turn on the TV and then we used to get popcorn and like there's all these things that can like lead to it. So I don't know. I think if anyone takes anything out of this, it's like a level of self awareness or trying to develop that. Um, and I think like journaling is a really good, easy way to do that. Like just start to like try and map it out on paper and like go through the decision process. Like, okay, I did X. Awesome. Did I, knowing what I know now, would I still do X? And the answer might be no. Okay. And why did I do X? What was leading up to it? What was I feeling? What was going on? Right. Is every time I feel bad about something, I go to the refrigerator. Okay, cool. We just need a better way to deal with our emotions. Right. But right now we're using food as a way to deal with our emotions, which is serving its purpose because it's making us feel probably good in the moment. Right. Or we're going for something sweet. So we're getting a little bit of that. But unless you really start to examine it or think about it or talk through it with something, I personally like to talk more than I like to journal because I like to think. Like I use talking as a way to sort through my ideas, um, and so figure out what works for you, and then like that's where a coach can come into play because part of the coaching process is getting you to talk through this stuff. Because once you say it out loud, sometimes it's like, oh, that that does sound kind of weird, right? Now that I said it out loud, like that, yeah, that I'm going to do something different.
But you could also journal it, because most people get into a freer space when they start writing
Mhm.
to be able to do it, but then read it out loud to you, or just read it back to yourself to kind of see where you're at and your headspace is. Um, but I think it's, it's a tool. It's finding the tools that help you assess the choices that you're making and make changes on them. And I mean, that's really all we do week after week, is try and give you guys new tools and different ways to look at stuff. And what we see works and doesn't work, and some of that stuff in between.
A great question you can ask yourself after you do something or you've done something consistently: how is that working for you? Right? Is it, because it may be working well, and that's cool. Like that may be a great coping mechanism or technique. Awesome. Like continue with it. But if we're not happy with it, let's do a little examination and then change it. That's the cool thing, is like you have the ability to change if you choose you want to. We can't just let ourselves like be a leaf in the wind and go wherever. Like you have a level of autonomy in the process. Yes, there's lots of things like chance and luck and things that play into it, but we don't like to focus on those because they're out of our control. But we do have the ability to control a lot of other things. So, yep, I think that's good for today.
All right, guys, you know where to find us.